very, very nice. So, to begin with, please repeat after me. Jai Jai Sri Chaitanya Jai Nityananda. Jai Advaita Chandra Jai Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jai Jai Sri Chaitanya Jai Nityananda. Jai Advaita Chandra Jai Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jai Jai Sri Chaitanya Jai Nityananda. Jai Advaita Chandra Jai Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Excuse me, my voice gets a little rough sometimes. So we are going to read devotees from Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Antya Leela, chapter 7, chapter titled The Meeting of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Vallabha Bhatta. And let me just give you a little bit of background, is that Vallabha Bhatta, he was a very well-known scholar and what you would call a Shastri, someone who's really studied scripture a lot. And, well, it's a bit of a long story, who he is, what's his background, and so on. But basically, he had a rather high opinion of himself. He really thought he was very knowledgeable, etc. And in fact, he was a sort of unstable person, you could say. Sometimes he was nice and sometimes he wasn't so nice. Here, he begins by being nice and glorifying Lord Chaitanya. And he actually speaks one verse, which is a fairly prominent verse in our line about the position of Lord Chaitanya. And not just the position of Lord Chaitanya, but the positions of preachers in Krishna consciousness, particularly the most prominent preachers like Srila Prabhupada. So first of all, actually, I'll read this one verse. It's a very nice verse of his, which he speaks in glorification of Lord Chaitanya, and which Srila Prabhupada quoted on a number of occasions. And then we'll see how Lord Chaitanya responds to it. Kali Kalira Dharma Krishna Nam Sankirtan Krishna Shakti Vinanahe Tara Pravatan. Maybe if you listen to Prabhupada classes sometimes, it's quite likely you would have heard that before. So the translation is, the fundamental religious system in the age of Kali is the chant holy name of Krishna. One cannot propagate the Sankirtan movement. And Srila Prabhupada quoted it on a number of occasions, and it describes Srila Prabhupada himself very nicely. in that he was able to spread the Sankirtan on a massive, massive scale. Madhyam Adhikari, Madhyam meaning middle, and the highest devotee, a very elevated, pure devotee, is called an Uttama Adhikari. And it's said that a Kanishta Adhikari, a beginning devotee, may, and may not also, but may be able to keep themselves Krishna conscious. It depends, but it's possible. The middle level devotee can not only keep themselves Krishna conscious, but can help others, some others to become and to remain Krishna conscious. But the Uttama Adhikari, and Srila Prabhupada is an example of Uttama Adhikari. The Uttama Adhikari can make the whole world Krishna conscious. That's a different level of devotee, a different level of Shakti, power, spiritual power. Yeah, so Vallabhabhata was speaking that important verse, which definitely describes Srila Prabhupada, that, well, let me just read it again, because it's really outstanding. Just a sec. The fundamental religious system in the age of Kali is the chanting of the holy name of Krishna. Unless empowered by Krishna, one cannot propagate the Sankirtan movement. So, like we said, Prabhupada is just such an excellent example of someone who was able to spread the Sankirtan movement, and he just really did. You know, to get me into the Sankirtan movement, I tell you what, you got to have some Shakti. So, and to keep me in it, keep me anywhere, yeah. So Prabhupada. So Vallabhabhata speaks this verse and a few others when he meets Lord Chaitanya, and he's glorifying Lord Chaitanya. It's nice. He's glorifying Lord Chaitanya as being the great, or even the greatest transcendental personality. But Lord Chaitanya is in the mood of a devotee. So Lord Chaitanya not just generally, but Lord Chaitanya was extremely humble. We gave an example yesterday. Those of you who are here might remember how Lord Chaitanya expressed when he was glorified as having great love for Krishna, then Lord Chaitanya just denied it completely. I actually have no love for Krishna at all. Just zero. So here, having been glorified in really quite a dramatic way, Lord Chaitanya then responds very humbly in a different type of way to what we mentioned last night. But it's really nice. So here we go. This is now Antya-lila chapter 7. This is verse 16. I'll read the Bengali And then I'll just read the translations of the following verses. So, Mahaprabhu kahe shuna, bata Mahamati, Mayavadi sannyasi ami, na jani Krishna bhakti. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu replied, my dear Vallabhabhata, you are a learned scholar. Kindly listen to me. I am a sannyasi of the Mayavad school. Therefore, I have no chance of knowing what Krishna Bhakti is. Because Vallabhabhata had just said that you have so much Krishna Bhakti, it's just totally astronomical. So Lord Chaitanya says, he says, Shuna Bhatta, listen, Bhatta, that I'm a Mayavadi sannyasi, and Mayavadis are famous for having no Krishna Bhakti, being opposed to Krishna Bhakti, actually. So I'm a sannyasi of the Mayavadi school, and therefore I have no chance of knowing what Krishna Bhakti is. And now this is Lord Chaitanya continuing. Nevertheless, my mind has become purified because I have associated with Advaita Acharya, who is directly the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It's very nice how he responds. So he continues that he means Advaita Acharya. He is unparalleled in his understanding of all the revealed scriptures and the devotional service of Lord Krishna. Therefore, he is called Advaita Acharya. He is such a great personality that by his mercy, he can convert even the meat-eaters, malechas, to the devotional service of Krishna. Who therefore can estimate the power of his Vaishnavism? Yeah. You may have known one or two, you may have met one or two meat-eaters in the past. I have. But by the potency of Srila Prabhupada, they became devotees. Yeah. And there's just a very short purport here. Prabhupada says, it is extremely difficult to convert a malecha or meat-eater into a devotee of Lord Krishna. Therefore, anyone who can do so is situated on the highest level of Vaishnavism. Chaitanya continues, and in the same mood, expressing this very profound humility in quite a different way from just saying, no, I'm not an advanced devotee. Qualifying the other devotees and personalities around him. Lord Nityananda Prabhu, the Avaduta, is also directly the Supreme Personality of God. He is always intoxicated with the madness of ecstatic love. Indeed, he is an ocean of love of Krishna. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya perfectly knows the 6 philosophical theses. He is the spiritual master of the entire world in teaching the 6 paths of philosophy. He is the best of devotees. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya has shown the limit of devotional service. Only by his mercy I understood that devotional service to Krishna the essence of all. So expressing his humanity. First of all, he said that me, an advanced devotee, forget it. I'm a Mayavadi. We hate devotional service. But then now he's saying that, however, I've had the association of these people who are really wonderful devotees. And maybe I picked up a little bit from them. Srila Ramananda Roy is the ultimate knower of the transcendental mellows of Lord Krishna's devotional service. He has instructed me that Lord Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead. He has instructed me. I picked something up from him. Through the mercy of Ramananda Roy, I have understood that ecstatic love of Krishna is the highest goal of life, and that spontaneous love of Krishna is the highest perfection. So this is very nice. It's a little more than what we read last night from Lord Chaitanya, where he just, when someone says, "Oh, you're such a great devotee, you've got so much love of God," and Lord Chaitanya said, "That's ridiculous. I have no love for Krishna." I mean, he said the same thing, but he's giving some insights by referring to the devotees, which is very nice in general, because the devotees are very special. The devotees are very special indeed. Without the we want Krishna. Subject for another. But I mention one thing by Srila Jiva Goswami, our great acharyas from plus or minus 5 years ago. Jiva Goswami, in translating a verse from Srimad Bhagavatam, which is actually spoken by Lord Krishna himself, and this verse is emphasizing serving the devotees as a means for becoming a servant of Krishna. And so he says, sort of paraphrases, that serving the devotees is a more effective way of developing love for Krishna than trying to develop love for Krishna. That's interesting, isn't it? Serving the devotees is a more effective way of developing love for Krishna than trying to develop love for Krishna. Yes. I'll leave that with you. You can think about it. Now, did you download those verses? I mean, things? The first one is helpless. Now, assuming we got ourselves set up sufficiently and properly, we're going to play 2 excerpts. We read them, well, one we tried to hear, but it didn't work well. The other one I just read. We're going to try to hear them now over our heavy-duty sound system. And thank you to Prema Sindhu Prabhu for loaning this to us. Helpless, right? Okay, here we go. Louder.
Yes, if he thinks that I am non-entity, helpless, then he can remain. If he thinks I can do something, so was intelligent. Just like child is humble always, because he knows that I am completely helpless. Unless Mother helps me, therefore whenever he is in need of something, he cries, Mother help me. This is helplessness, always, karpanya. This is one of the items of surrender. Unless you think yourself helpless, you cannot surrender. Surrender is complete when you think yourself that you are helpless. I am helpless, but because I am surrendered to Krishna, he will save me. This faith also must be there. That although I am helpless, or not although I am factually helpless, but because I am surrendered to Krishna, I am no danger. He will help me, protect me.
Okay. Did you hear that? Could you follow it? Rajavasi Prabhu? Could you hear it? Is that Rajavasi? Okay. Anyway, you heard it at the back? Were you able to follow it? Wasn't difficult? Okay. So yeah, helplessness. We mentioned that yesterday. Helplessness. And Prabhupada's saying that without feeling helpless, you cannot surrender. Why would you surrender if you're not helpless? If you're not helpless, if you are, if you've got yourself well organized, if you're on top of things, so to speak, then you don't feel helpless, of course. And if you don't feel helpless, then why would you surrender? How could you surrender? So that was the point there. Yes, so that helplessness, the question at the beginning, maybe you missed it, was the one devotee asked Prabhupada, how can we remain humble in our devotional service? And so Prabhupada, he began by saying that you have to see that you're like a non-entity, helpless. And then, of course, he mentioned helplessness several times as he spoke. The next one that we'll play, it's the one we tried to play yesterday, in which Srila Prabhupada is talking about Sanatana Goswami, who was poverty-stricken, and he would try to offer food to Madan Mohan, but he couldn't offer anything very nice. He didn't have any, he couldn't even put salt on his roti. Can you imagine a saltless roti? So Madan Mohan complained to him, and Sanatana Goswami said, basically, sorry, I can't do any better. Anyway, let's listen, and listen carefully, because Prabhupada towards the end, it's only a minute, towards the end Prabhupada becomes very emotional in his mood of helplessness, actually. So let's listen to it. It's really very nice. Listen carefully.
Krishna, at that time, Madan Mohan, he was talking with Sanatana Goswami. Madan Mohan, Sanatana Goswami at that time had no temple. He was hanging his deity on the tree. So Madan Mohan was talking with him, Sanatana, you are bringing all these dry chapatis, and it is still and you don't give me little salt, how can I eat? Sanatana Goswami says, sir, where shall I go? Whatever I get, I offer you. You kindly accept. I cannot move, old man. So Krishna had to eat that. Because the bhakta is offering, he cannot refuse. Jimam bhaktya prasich. Real thing is bhakti. What you can offer to Krishna, everything belongs to Krishna. What you have got? What is your value? And what is the value of your things? It is nothing. Therefore, the real thing is bhaktya. Real thing is your feeling. Krishna, kindly take it. I have no qualification. I am most rotten fallen. But I applaud this thing for you. Please take. This will be accepted. Don't be perturbed. Always be careful. You are dealing with Krishna. That is my request. Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Okay, that's some food for thought for you. Let us go into the subject of humility a little more. What is humility? What is it composed of, you could say? What does it look like? But first of all, what's it composed of? First thing, let's give a sort of etymological analysis of the word humility. It comes from the Greek term humilis, from which the English word humility has come, but also the English word humus meaning earth, Humus, humus. Humilus means low, small, slight, or humus, soil, earth. You can't really get much lower than being down on the level of the soil of the earth. So here's a bit of an analysis. What is humility? Having or showing a consciousness of one's defects or shortcomings. To not be proud, to not be self-assertive, to be modest, to be low in condition or rank or position, lowly, unpretentious, an absence of pride or self-assertion, not to be proud or self-assertive, to be submissive. These are sort of different perspectives, you could say, on humility from slightly different angles of vision. In Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna gives a definition, you could say, of humility. Humility means not wanting the satisfaction of being honored by others. Here's something, this is pretty profound. Consider this. Humility means accepting the truth about ourselves. And what does that mean? That means, as according to Shastra, and how many times Prabhupada repeated this, I don't know, that what are we? What size are we as eternal spirit souls? You know, 1/10,000th the size of the tip of a hair. You know, you could have a look at a tip of your hair. That's pretty small. 1/10,000th the size of the tip of a hair. That's what we are as eternal spirit souls. That's what we actually are, because we're all eternal spirit souls. You know, we've got these big bodies. Some of our bodies are bigger than others. And generally people identify in these terms, that I'm a man or a woman or this nationality or that, this age or that, this type of physical build or that. And people think this is me, but it's not me. So what am I then? I'm 1/10,000th the size of the tip of a hair. That's pretty small. And in that sense, what right have we got to become proud? We have no right. And it's simply untrue to be proud, simply unreal. Here's an aspect of humility. Acknowledging you're wrong when you were wrong. I think the previous president of America was not so good at that. Anyway, we shouldn't get into it, should we? Because the current one, on a certain level, he's much more pleasant. But I think he's also got a few problems. I think he eats a little meat every now and then. It's a problem, I'm afraid. It's a lack of humility. I mean, it's many things, but it's a lack of humility also. Is it a lack of humility to think that I am just so important that in order to keep myself alive and just in order to enjoy my taste buds, some other living entity can just be killed because the other living entity is so totally insignificant. That's not very nice, is it? That's heavy pride. That's super heavy pride. So, to appreciate that we are tiny servants. We're tiny servants. Srila Prabhupada gave the example of the hand in relation to the body. You may have heard the example that the hand puts food, among other things, puts food in the mouth. So Srila Prabhupada said one day the hand decided to go on strike, that I keep putting all the food in the mouth and I get none. And this is not right. Therefore, I'm going to consume the food myself. So therefore, the hand stopped putting food in the mouth and started trying to sort of squeeze it in somehow or other, consume the food itself. And tried, because he wanted to enjoy. The hand understood that it's really nice to eat tasty foodstuffs. So he tried squeezing the food into his hand, but then after a day or a couple of days, something like that, he noticed that he had lost strength really drastically. He was losing strength and he was becoming unable to function. Certainly couldn't function how he normally did. So he thought, let me try putting the food back in the mouth and see if that helps. So again, food in the mouth, and shortly the hand was feeling normal again. So the point there is that in order to enjoy, if we try to give ourselves enjoyment, that is not the way that we can enjoy, not the natural way. But rather, if we give Krishna pleasure, just like the hand, giving the body pleasure by putting the food in the mouth. So if we give Krishna pleasure, because he's the sum and substance of everything, then because we are part of everything, if we give pleasure to Krishna, just like the hand giving food to the body, so the hand becomes strong, the hand becomes satisfied, and we become satisfied by giving pleasure to Krishna. It may sound illogical to some people. Give pleasure to someone else and not to yourself, and then you get pleasure. And if you try to give yourself pleasure, you just don't get pleasure. But that's how it works. So we should try to recognize that we're tiny servants, and that to really get pleasure, we need to serve Krishna. We should appreciate, try to appreciate and give honor to others. We may do a little exercise towards the end of the class here in a little while. We may have you turn around to the devotee who's sitting next to you and try and think of something, some appreciation, how you could offer some respect and appreciation to that devotee. Just have a quick look at the devotee next to you, because you never know. Yeah, we may do that. And you got to have something to say. You don't want to be like Duryodhana. You know that story? Duryodhana and Yudhisthira, there was a competition before the battle, of course. There was a competition. Duryodhana was told, you must go into the city and find someone who is worse than you. And Duryodhana was told, you must go into the city and find someone who is better than you. And they came back in the evening. So they asked Yudhisthira, did you find someone who was worse than you? And Yudhisthira said, you know, I really tried. I tried my best. I just couldn't find anyone worse than me. And then Duryodhana came in, and they asked him, did you find anyone better than you? And he said, you know, I tried my best. I just really tried. I just couldn't find anyone better than me. You get the idea, don't you? Yes. To appreciate that we are not the doer. Now this is more subtle. This is subtle, actually. To appreciate that we are not the doers. I'll just give you one example to illustrate the idea, the concept of us not being the doers. In Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna says that that we are situated. Let me just look up the verse. Let me just look up the verse. Prakrite. Oh, if I can find the verse. No, I can't find it. But Lord Krishna makes the point that we're situated in these bodies which are composed of the modes of material nature. Can anyone remember that verse? That's a Prakrite Kriyamanani Gunai Karmani Sarvasha Ahankara Vimudatma Karta Aham Iti Manyate. The bewildered spirit soul, under the influence of the three modes of material nature, thinks himself to be the performer of activities which are in actuality carried out by nature. So Krishna says there that activities, the bewildered spirit soul thinks himself to be the doer of activities, but actually the activities are carried out by material nature. So an example, here's my hand. Now here, my hand is going to do an activity, or I'm going to do an activity with my hand. Look, I'm lifting my hand. Now I'm putting my hand down, lifting and down. So according to what Lord Krishna says there, that the point is that this activity, I am not the doer of that activity. The activity is carried out by material nature. But you know, it looks like I'm lifting my hand, I'm putting my hand down. Looks like I'm doing. But Krishna says, actually it's being carried out by material nature. So how is it working really? The way it's working is, I am desiring. I'm sitting here, and then I'm thinking, let me lift my hand. Oh, there it goes. And I'm going to put my hand down. But the actual mechanics of it is that I have desired. And then the material nature has carried it out. Not exactly that I have done it. It's a subtle thing. But anyway, this is part of the idea of that we are not the doers. We are the desirers. And different activities are carried out on the basis of our desires, but they're carried out by the material nature. Here's another nice aspect to humility, that our good, whatever good qualities we have, whatever success we have in doing things, it is all due to the mercy of Krishna. It's not due to us being expert, clever, something like that. It's all due to the mercy of Krishna. If we're able to do something nice. I gave the example the other day, you may remember, of the one cook. Do you remember that? Who really, he was a good cook, actually. Or else you could say Krishna allowed him to cook nicely and helped him so that he could cook nicely. But he became very attached to that, to being glorified and praised that, oh, you cooked this or that so nicely. And he would pat himself on the back. So he was really attached to being glorified as a good cook, like he's the doer, and not that Krishna's giving him mercy and therefore he's able to do some things. So one day, you remember, he cooked the halava for everyone in the temple. I don't know, but maybe there was 20 devotees, maybe 30. Maybe there was, say, a couple of kilos of semolina. Let's say 2 kilos of semolina, 4 liters of water. And then you know what I would do? And anyway, I won't say I can cook halava nicely, but I've cooked a lot of halava. I would use, if I was going to use 2 kilos of semolina, 4 liters of water, I would use 3 kilos of sugar. And I'd use 2 kilos of butter. How's that? And then, you know, maybe half a kilo of some sort of dried fruit just to add a little character. So he cooked like that, one of his super duper halavas, and then he brought it out, he offered it and brought it out, and someone started serving, and the first devotee to get some, expecting this is going to be nectar, lifted the halava up to the mouth. In the mouth it went, and suddenly there was a look of complete shock on that devotee's face, and he literally spat it out. Because the cook, being proud and not getting the mercy of Krishna, or maybe getting a different type of mercy to help him to improve himself, the cook, instead of putting 3 kilos of sugar, had put 3 kilos of salt. Yeah. Anyway, sure. And salt is so much stronger than sugar. So it was just inedible. They put it out for the animals wouldn't eat it. So then they put it under the trees in the sort of vicinity. And as I understand, even the trees wouldn't eat it. But we have to, part of humility, and this is simply truth. This is not like, let us sort of do some mental gymnastics to make ourselves think that we're not so good. This is just part of recognition of reality, to recognize that our good, our qualifications, when we're able to do something successfully, it's simply by the mercy of Krishna. And if Krishna withdraws his mercy, if he sees us becoming proud, then as Chaitanya Charitamrita says, well, in regard to humility really, by the mercy of Lord Chaitanya, a lame man can climb mountains. By the mercy of Lord Chaitanya, a blind man can see the stars in the sky. And by the mercy of Lord Chaitanya, a child can understand the conclusive truths of the Vedic scriptures. Like, she can understand easily. I'm talking about a 5-year-old child. How old are you now? Oh, you're big. Middle age. Yeah, so by the mercy of Lord Chaitanya, lame man can climb mountains, blind man can see the stars in the sky. A child can understand the conclusive truths of the Vedic scriptures. But without the mercy of Lord Chaitanya, even the most expert person, supposedly or apparently, cannot do anything. Just cannot do anything. Yeah, so these are all different elements in the picture of humility. And we, because humility is so much emphasized and so valuable in Krishna consciousness, we should meditate on these things. If we just think about these things, then gradually, if we think regularly about these things, gradually they will become part of us. If there's anything that you think about regularly and just on an ongoing basis, gradually it will become part of you. As I was told when I first moved into the temple, many years ago, nearly 50, they told me, you got to read Bhagavad Gita. Okay, I'll read it. So I read it. And then they said, you know, you got to read Bhagavad Gita 27 times, and then it becomes part of you. And the principle is right. If you study these things, if you think about these things, they become part of you. And similarly with humility, if we think of these different things, not wanting the satisfaction of being honored by others, think about the fact that we're very, very, like, infinitesimally small. Being ready to acknowledge we're wrong when we're wrong. Understanding we're tiny servants, that we're not the doers. Appreciating others and honoring, respecting others, expressing it. And understanding our good and our success like that is simply due to the mercy of Krishna. If we develop a bit of a practice, a routine, you could even say, of just meditating, thinking a little bit about these things on a daily basis, maybe a few times a day, gradually they'll become part of us. And we'll find that we start more and more living on the basis and acting on the basis of these things. Here's an interesting one. Knowing, accepting that there's always room for improvement. Here's a heavy one. Confessing and repenting for your sins and weaknesses. This is extremely important. Being honest. You know, there should be at least one person in your life who you can be honest with. I mean, totally honest with. Not just partially or sometimes, but fully honest. Just open your heart. This is what I am. And they'll be able to deal with that without getting disturbed or angry or becoming sarcastic or something. So that's an extremely important one. Confessing and repenting for your sins and weaknesses. Feeling lowly without feeling depressed or self-centered. This is related to the first little recording we played earlier. Helplessness. Knowing that I'm helpless, which is true. Knowing that I'm helpless, but then also knowing that Krishna's there and Krishna will help me. Krishna will protect me. So therefore I can be humble and feel lowly, but not feel depressed and not feel like giving up and just, you know, what's the use, what's the point? Being self-honest, being honest with yourself. Tolerance as part of humility. Here's an interesting one. Tolerance is the essence of humility. Think of that. Then surrender, of course, surrender. Without humility, there can't be surrender. Compassion. Humility is an ornament of prema. Humility is an ornament of love. Here's an interesting one, bit of a juxtaposition, really. Listen to this. One devotee asked Prabhupada, If Krishna is so attractive, why is it so hard to be attracted to Krishna? Because Krishna, we hear, is all attractive. You can't get more attractive than being all attractive. But we have difficulty in becoming attracted to Krishna. Rather, we have so many tendencies to become attracted to other things. So devotee asked Prabhupada, if Krishna is so attractive, why is it so hard to be attracted to Krishna? And Srila Prabhupada answered, fasten your seat belts. I think you should put your other foot on the ground because you might fall off. So Prabhupada answered, so why is it so hard to be attracted to Krishna? Although he's all attractive, Prabhupada answered, because you hate Krishna. Anyway, just think about that. And you'll see there's more to it than you might expect. Srila Raghunath Das Goswami said, enjoying honor is like bathing in not donkey urine. Not donkey urine. That's something else. We'll get to that. But enjoying honor is like bathing in pig stool. Pigs are famous for eating stool. You know, I'm sure you've heard Prabhupada on numerous occasions talking about the pigs and eating stool. The pigs would rather eat stool than a nice plate of halava. So, you know, I've seen in India, once we were on a train many years ago, going somewhere in India, and you know, in the villages they have these stool fields. People don't have toilets. They just go out, there's a field. It's a communal toilet, open air conditioned. And one day we saw one man, it was early morning, like 6, and the people go out at that time to the stool fields. And we saw this one man, he's crouching down, crouching on his haunches, and in the process of passing stool. And there are like 3 pigs on the other side of the stool field, and they must have been having a bad day. Maybe not enough people came out to pass stool. So these pigs, they had a race to get to the man first. I'm not joking at all. And they were just flat out. And they're going so fast, and they didn't want to slow down, you know, for when they reach him. They reached him at full speed and knocked this man flying. Oh, Krishna. Yeah. So yeah, that's the pigs. They like to eat stool. And then they pass stool, of course. So it's like super stool. You get the idea. Don't mind me too much, please. We get onto these types of tangents every now and then. But Prabhupada talked about this. And Raghunath Das Goswami said, enjoying honor is like bathing in pig stool. Yeah. Why would someone think of honor being like bathing in pig stool? Because What could be worse than bathing in pig stall? And in many cases, even if people have everything they want, they still want honor. Even if they've got so much money, just too much money, there's no question of being able to use it, really constructively for your life. But they still want honor. Okay, now let's just consider for a moment a little bit, what is pride? Pride is an unduly high opinion of oneself. You're not that good, but you think you are. Pride means to want honor, to see yourself as the doer, to be motivated for doing something for the sake of getting honor. And there's a saying, this is an interesting little saying, that on the way up, as you're going up, becoming more important, on the way up, you better be nice to people because you're going to see them on the way down again. Pride, to take credit, to think you're better than others, to think we're independent from Krishna, to not be satisfied with what we have. Lord Vamana told Bali Maharaj. Bali Maharaj said to Lord Vamana, you ask me for something, whatever it is, I'll give it to you. Just think of whatever you want. And Lord Vamana said, yes, thank you. I want as much land as I can cover in 3 of my steps. And Bali Maharaj said, come on. I can give you a country. I can give you a planet. Lord Vamana is like a 5-year-old child, apparently. And Bali Maharaj said, listen, you're too young. You don't understand the value of things. Let me give you a planet. How's that? And Lord Vamana answered, if I could not be satisfied with 3 steps of land, then what to speak of a planet? I would not be able to be satisfied with a universe. It's a principle. It's a principle. It's not a quantitative thing exactly. It's a principle. And the principle is more. And the idea that if I get more, then I will be more satisfied. So, yes, to not be satisfied with what you have is a fault connected with pride. To be judgmental, to think that we are the best religion. Well, you know what? I think we're the best religion. I really do. And it's true. It's actually true. Krishna consciousness, Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita chapter 9 verse 2 that Krishna consciousness is the perfection of religion. It's the best. But what is ironic is that sometimes some devotees who are sort of not so stable and not doing so well, they like to push this idea, yeah, Krishna consciousness is the best, but they themselves are not maintaining a good standard of Krishna consciousness. But still they'd like to get up and criticize other religions. Because sometimes in other religions, you get some very, very sincere people. You get some extremely sincere people. And here's someone who may be kind of like a lazy devotee, a devotee who can't be bothered type of devotee to practice and actually follow properly. But they like to criticize other religions. Here's an interesting little story. Listen to this. Sure. Try and follow this. It's slightly complex. A teacher one time wanted to teach a class of 8-year-olds about prejudice. What is prejudice? So she didn't say that, we're going to teach you about this. Just one day, she told the children that I had just read a report that definitely proves that children with brown eyes are not as intelligent as children with blue eyes. What do you think of that? I've got blue eyes. So she told them, yeah, it's definitely proved. So then she said, so okay, all the children with brown eyes, you must stand at the back of the class. So they all went and stood at the back. And then the other children were making fun of them. You're stupid and all that. So the children with the brown eyes got a hard time. The next day, devotees, the teacher came and said, listen, children, I'm so sorry. I made a terrible mistake. Actually, the report said that the children with brown eyes are more intelligent than the children with blue eyes. So the blue-eyed children have to stand at the back. And then the children with the brown eyes gave them a hard time. So like this. Then she told them, then you know what she told them? She told them that she just made it up so they could understand, get some experience of what is prejudice. Yeah. And prejudice is part of pride. So anyway, there's some thoughts, devotees. There's some thoughts. Please consider this very carefully and think about yourself in terms of these different things we've spoken about, of humility and pride, and try and see what's there inside you. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Do we have questions there? We'll take a couple of questions if there are. Then we'll have, yes, Guru Puja, I think.
Okay, this is the first question, Maharaj. Sri Hanuman, we are told, is the son of Lord Shiva ultimately. Also that he is a kind of expansion of Lord Shiva. Is this accurate to say? And also, is Sri Hanuman then an expression of Lord Shiva's devotional mood, free of material desire?
Haribol. Did you all hear that? Anyway, we talked about the appearance of Hanuman last week. I don't know if the devotee who asked this was present last week. There's the whole story of Hanuman being conceived in a biological sense, conceived by Lord Shiva. But then sort of nurtured by Vayu. So anyway, I do think, not I do think, but I'm pretty clear that this idea that, what is it, Hanuman is Lord Shiva, what? Purified of...
So what it says here, it says that also that he is a kind of expansion of Lord Shiva.
Well, he's like biologically a son. And then what was the last bit though?
The last bit was, is this accurate to say that also Sri Hanuman is then an expression of Lord Shiva's devotional mood?
Not really. Hanuman is an expression of Hanuman's devotional mood. He's an eternal person. And these eternal persons, like Krishna is the son of Vasudeva, Devaki, or Nanda Yashoda, but the Lord just comes via these people, makes an entrance into this world. So similarly, the great devotees, they're eternal persons. Hanuman is there in Ayodhya, in the spiritual world, and he's there, he's always been there, he's there now, and he will always be there. But when he appears, he may come through this rather unusual way, Lord Shiva with Parvati, then Vayu, and then somehow or other placed in the womb of Anjana. But that's all sort of, it's not so important. It's definitely not so important at all. Because Hanuman is an eternally glorious devotee in the mood of being a servant.
Thank you. Second question. Sometimes helplessness can result in loss of faith and thus moving away from Sri Radha Krishna and the devotees. How can we not allow our feelings of helplessness to deter us from taking increased shelter, especially when our activities and behaviors do not align or are not up to par with what we theoretically know or have heard?
Yeah, you know what you need. I mean, it's not difficult if you find you're in a really difficult situation that you just can't control, and you just you've lost control of your life. So yeah, it's not difficult to understand that a person in such a situation could lose faith. So what you need though, you need the association of devotees, good devotees who have good faith, so that if or when your faith becomes shaky by being in a situation you can't manage, they can help you have faith and show you how to keep faith, explain to you why you should keep faith, help you to see the situation as Krishna's plan for your personal development. And then even in a very difficult situation, with that sort of support and help from the devotees, you'll be able to not just keep faith, but you know what Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj said? One thing he said was, when I see a test is coming to me, some difficult situation is just appearing in my life, then he said, when I see some test is coming to me, then I think, here comes Krishna in the form of the test. And then just like Queen Kunti prayed, I wish those calamities would come again and again. That's a more advanced level. Don't try and do that yet. But at least get the association of good devotees. And then when you get into some difficult situation, they'll be able to give you support and shelter, so that not only will you be able to handle it, but you'll be able to relate with it and act in such ways that that difficult situation gives you the opportunity to increase your Krishna consciousness, and you come out at the end of it a better devotee, a happier devotee, and a stronger devotee.
Thank you, Maharaj. The third question, Hare Krishna Maharaj, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Is the soul prone to be forgetful? Is it that the actions of the mind and body steer the soul away from its true nature? Or does the soul have its own will to do as it pleases?
Is the soul prone to be what?
Forgetful.
You didn't catch that, did you? Yes. We are prone to be forgetful. And, you know, the mind and intelligence and the body, they're just mechanical things, material things. So yes, they're prone to influence the soul, but the soul is already influenced by the desire to enjoy independently. And then you get a material mind, material intelligence, and material body, and those things are just naturally inclined to be independent. So they just compound your tendency as a conditioned soul to want to enjoy independently.
Thank you, Maharaj. The next question. Does the soul feed the mind to think in a certain way, or does the material mind steer the body to act in a certain way, ignoring the soul?
You know, it's a team effort. They work together to get into Maya. The mind, the body has its nature. The mind has its nature. The conditioned soul, which is desiring to enjoy material life, has its nature. And they all get together, and the person gets entangled more deeply in material life. Therefore, we need the association of devotees to stimulate us that, hey, what are you doing? Don't do that. Come this way. Yeah, otherwise, if we don't get the association of devotees, there's not much chance of making progress, but rather there's every chance, and it's almost inevitable, of going downhill.
Thank you, Maharaj. The next question. So there's two more questions left. In Bhagavad Gita, we are taught that we are entitled to our endeavor, but not to the results. Practically, how do we purify our desires so that we can bring out the best in ourselves for service, while simultaneously developing our humility and the productive mood of helplessness?
Yeah. Well, it's true. What is it? Karman yevadikaraste ma paleshu kadachana. You're entitled to the karman yevadikaraste, to the activity, to your duty. But ma paleshu, you're not entitled to the fruit. And, you know, the rest of the question, I would say, you know, in just simple terms, just in good association, try to follow the process of Krishna consciousness. Try to chant your rounds. Try to meditate on some things we mentioned, or encouraging perspective and keep practicing, keep chanting, associating with good like that, make progress.
And, so the last question now, Hare Krishna Maharaj. In the CC, it is recommended that chant Hare Krishna incessantly in order to remain humble. The activity of to give the mechanism of the source of pride. What does one do then? And then also, what is the relationship between humility and enthusiasm?
You know, I didn't get the first part.
In the CC, it is recommended that one should chant Hare Krishna incessantly
Yes,
in order to remain humble.
yes.
What if the activity of chanting Hare Krishna, whether through kirtan or katha, is the mechanism or the source of pride? What does one do then?
Does that make sense? I didn't quite. It seemed like a divergence towards the end. You know, you got kirtan, right?
Yes.
Or Krishna Katha.
Yes.
And then,
It said whether through kirtan or katha is the mechanism or the source of pride. So if by doing Krishna kirtan or katha that becomes the source of pride.
oh, if it
The
becomes,
source of pride.
then,
what does one do then?
oh, I see. Yes, well, you know what Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati said? When you're, in the morning when you get up, you know, when you're going to chant, you should beat your mind 100 times with a stick. And in the evening, beat your mind 100 times with a shoe. So sometimes we've got to be a little sort of positively proactive with the mind. Yeah. We've got to take the mind and say, listen, mind, don't go off, you know, on one of your tangents. Now we're going to focus here on our kirtan or our katha. And we're not going to start thinking that, oh, you know, you're such a good kirtan leader. You can do such nice Krishna katha. Now we're going to do the kirtan and we're just going to pronounce the holy names and we're just going to hear the holy names, nothing else. Yeah. Or we're just going to say some katha and just speak the katha, or just maybe hear the katha. So like this, you know, if you're a bit of a kirtan leader, you're a pretty good kirtan leader. So if you're a bit of a kirtan leader, and devotees sometimes come and say, oh, that was a nice kirtan, and therefore, you know, the idea may have developed that, oh yeah, I can lead kirtan. So when you do, pride just regularly starts to arise. Then you got to take your mind in hand and just tell your mind, you know, stop this, you rascal. And then keep the mind focused. And the thing is that the holy names and the katha, Krishna conscious sound vibration, has so much potency. A couple of days ago, on one of our japa sessions, one devotee put up a quote from Prabhupada, in which Prabhupada was saying that you must chant and try to avoid offenses. But even if you are committing offenses, just keep chanting. Keep trying to stop them, the offenses. But even if you can't stop the offenses, just keep chanting. Because the chanting is so powerful that if you keep on chanting, it'll gradually cleanse away the offenses. So if you're getting into some pride because you're some devotees say you're a good kirtan leader, then if you realize that, oh, you know, I'm developing this habit, then try to pull yourself together when you lead kirtan, or if you're doing a katha, and just keep focused on the sound vibration, pronouncing it and hearing it. And you'll find if you do that, by the time you finish the kirtan, your mind will be in a different state, a much better state. Yeah. Yes. Hare Krishna.
There's just one more in the same question. So, what is the relationship between humility?
Real enthusiasm. One thing we're going to talk about next weekend, it's from Brihad Bhagavatamrita, is that it's either Uddhava or Narada Muni, I forget which one, but it's one of the two, tells Gopakumar that humility, dainya is a Sanskrit term for humility. Humility, dainya, and prema of course means love. Humility and love are synonyms. That's an interesting perspective. Humility and love are synonyms. They're the same thing. Where there's real humility, that's real love. You can't separate the two. So humility and enthusiasm, inspiration, they're also connected like that. Like also faith and love. Love is a developed form of faith. Now, these are very interesting, apparently somewhat esoteric understandings. But as faith develops, it transforms or just manifests as love. And humility, as humility develops, it manifests as love, as prema. So yeah, enthusiasm, inspiration in Krishna consciousness. The more we become genuinely humble, the more we'll feel that we want to chant, we want to serve, we want to associate, we want to hear all these Krishna conscious things. The more humility manifests in our heart, the more, in a very natural and spontaneous way, attraction will come to those things, towards those things. Is that okay?
So the next part of the program is going to be Guru Puja to Srila Prabhupada. But just before that, I'd just like to make a few announcements. So Prasadam was sponsored today by Murti Mataji and her family. And this was done on behalf of her late dad. So please just thank her when you see her, when you're taking prasad. And then if you would like to cook or sponsor the prasadam, so the sponsor is 1,008 rand to cook for the devotees for one Sunday feast. And if you would like to cook it also, you can contact Madhurika Mataji. If you don't know, you can ask one of us here and we'll direct you to Madhurika Mataji. And then there's some service opportunities at the Govinda's restaurant on the weekend. So if you feel free and feel inspired to do some service, you can come through and do some service at the restaurant. Then there's devotee prasadam cooking for Saturday and Sunday. So I'm assuming that that's the lunch and the supper as well as the breakfast for the devotees that live here at the temple. And then one more service opportunity, or this very now. And then there's fundraising committee, so helping to fund the temple to get some Lakshmi to maintain the temple facility. And then communication, so to communicate to the devotees, but also to help get reach to the outside communities also. So if you have any ideas or any suggestions, please come forward and we can put you in contact with the right devotees and you can assist in spreading this movement of Srila Prabhupada. And then Yeah, also if you want to know who you can contact to actually start, or if there's any service that you would like to do that you can offer to the temple, also please come forward, even if it's not listed on this list, but please do come forward. You know, any service is of great help in this movement. So, you know, we really, really appreciate it. And then lastly, I'd like to thank His Holiness Bhakti Chaitanya Swami Maharaj for this amazing class on humility. Also, can we please just kindly raise our hands and loudly with your heart, please kindly chant Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Thank you so much, Maharaj. So we'll continue with the next part of the program, and once we're done with Guru Puja and Kirtan, then there's just some closure and a vote of thanks. So please kindly stay, and also just please don't move around while the kirtan is happening. If you could please just sit at your, stand up at your seat, and then you can face the altar or sing along with your heart. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
And we'll also have japa at the end for those who'd like.
Yeah, so Maharaj will be having japa. So also when Maharaj is having japa, like you can go and collect your prasad and come and sit back at your seat, and you can chant with Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
So shall I sing, or do you want to sing? I'll try. This mic is not so good. Our mic is better.
We can change it.
Yeah, let's change it. Is that our mic?
Not our, but it's good.
Yeah.
Haribol. Whoops. Okay. Jai Prabhupada, Jai Prabhupada, Jai Prabhupada, Jai Prabhupada. Jai Prabhupada, Jai Prabhupada, Jai Prabhupada, Jai Prabhupada. Jai Jai Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada. Jai Jai Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada. Sri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakati Sadma. Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakati Sadma. Prabhupada. Bandamo Isavadana Mate. Bandamo Isavadana Mate. Yahara Prasade Pai Hebavatorya Jai Yahara Prasade Pai Hebavatorya Jai Krishna Prapti Hoya Hai Te Krishna Prapti Hoya Hai Te Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chitete Korya Aikya Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chetete Korya Aikya Anakoryo Mane Asha Prabhupada Anakoryo Mane Asha Guru Charane Rati Ese Uttamagati Shri Guru Charane Rati Ese Uttamagati Ye Prasade Pure Sarva Asha Ye Prasade Pure Sarva Asha Chakudana Dilate Janme Janme Prabhu Se Chakudana Dilate Janme Janme Prabhu Se Divya Ganide Prakasita Ganide Prakasita Ena Bhakti Jai Jaya Vijaya Vinasha Jate Prema Bhakti Jai Jaya Vijaya Vinasha Jate Vedega Jahara Charita Vedega Jahara Charita Shri Guru Karuna Sindhu Dhamma Janara Bandho Guru Karuna Sindhu Adama Janara Bandho Lokanath Lokara Jivana Lokanath Lokara Jivana Prabhu Karadaya Demore Padacha Prabhu Karadaya Demore Padachaya Evidas Kusuchi Bhavana Prabhupada Loyla Sharana Srila Prabhupada Patita Pavana Prabhupada 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 Jai Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada. Jai Jai Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada. Namah Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Saminiti Namine Prabhupada. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Dejatarine Prabhupada. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shivasati Gabhakta Vrinda Chaitanya Nityananda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gabhakta Vrinda Chaitanya Nityananda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Gaurita. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare.